It's the final day, championship day, at the CITGO Bassmaster Classic 2006. But today, the winds of change may affect who wears the crown. A line of thunderstorms has gone through, forcing tournament director Trip Weldon to delay the launch for 30 minutes.
Okay, the official time right now is 5:37. Takeoff is scheduled at 6:40. Obviously, with a low ceiling, that will be delayed to probably 10 or 15 minutes. Our main concern is the safety of the competitors and spectators in the area. Okay, Chris, we now have an all clear from weather service. Let's go ahead and launch the boats.
Put on your rain suit. We're going fishing. Championship day is underway. Welcome to the third and final day of the Bassmaster Classic. Today, dreams become reality.
I've always wanted to know if I was good enough.
Don't think I ain't looking for that sweet spot, and if I do, I'm gonna tear this place down.
Yes! Day one, a new season for the Classic, and the large bass were biting.
Oh, that's the right kind.
3 times the record for biggest fish fell, while the youngest angler in the field brought in the heaviest single-day total in Classic history.
Today was just one of those days you couldn't do anything wrong. Everything went perfectly.
Day 2, elimination day. Big catches shook up the leaderboard. The hometown anglers set out to prove fishing in Florida might be a skill born, not learned. Defending champion Kevin Van Dam survived the cut.
It's either, 0 or 0. I'm not fishing for a limit. I'm fishing for gorillas.
But the leader is still Luke Clausen.
Yes. 5 of those would be 500 grand.
51 anglers, down to 25.
Oh.
The biggest fish ever. The largest purse ever. $500,000. For the first time in February, one man will be crowned CITGO Bassmaster Classic World Champion. The fishing is underway on championship day. 25 million people in this country fish for bass. We're down to the top 25 right now on Lake Toho here in Kissimmee, Florida. Man, oh man, what a big day this is. The biggest single day in all of fishing. There's the lock. You got to get past that if you're going to get on down to maybe where you're going to win the Classic. So many things to negotiate, so many things weighing on an angler's mind on this special day. There it is, that special piece of hardware, the most valuable piece of equipment in the world of fishing. If you get that trophy, well, you're crowned the world champion of bass fishing, and you're $500,000 richer. And this is it, the final day. Today, we crown our champion. I'm Tommy Sanders. Great to be here along with, to take us through the day, former Classic champ, former Angler of the Year, all-time money-winning leader, Denny Broward. Denny, great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Tommy. This is just going to be one of those days. The weather's going to play a huge factor, folks. But I tell you, when it gets like this, that's when you see them giant stringers. There's going to be guys helped, and there's going to be guys hurt.
All right, we got 7 guys at least with a shot at that top crown today. Who are these guys? Let's get to know them really quickly, because we're going to get to know them very well over the next 2.5 hours of live coverage. Take a look at that. Luke Clausen. Luke Clausen, our leader, the youngest angler in the competition. Ron Sheffield, Terry Scroggins. Preston Clark, one of our locals here, trying to be the first ever to win a Classic in his home state. Rick Morris, who has not been to a Classic in 9 years. All right, let's take a look at all the weights, where they caught their fish today. Who do you like in this contest, Denny?
I really like Terry Scroggins. He's got so much momentum. This sport is like every other sport. If you have the momentum, it can carry you through. And if he can get 1 or 2 big fish early, he's going to win this event. There's not a doubt in my mind. But if he doesn't, it's a wide open deal. 2 local anglers in the top 4. I think that's a huge story right there in itself. Most of the time, local anglers fold. These 2 guys are good. They're going to be a factor.
You think they can stay with it?
I really do. I think they know the spots. They know the techniques. They know how to adjust in weather like this. Their odds are very, very good.
All right, well, let's take a look at the guys who did not make the final cut to 25, who are going for the championship today. Look at that. Marty Stone, Mark Menendez, some big names. Mark Menendez with the huge comeback this year. Gary Klein, many times he has come in on this. David Walker and Mike Iaconelli. What about that? Mike Iaconelli shot himself out of it on the first day.
Yeah, he did, but really he didn't catch him on the second day, so he probably didn't have enough fish to do well in this tournament anyway.
All right, 2 disqualifications in Classic history for Iaconelli. It's been part of the chatter here at the Classic. Classic, and of course you can't avoid things like that. That's going to make the news when something like that happens.
Yeah, but when you finish 51st, we don't even need to be talking about him anymore.
All right, let's take a look at our playing field today. About 100 square miles. Imagine live coverage on a playing field that size. Take a look at it right there in Central Florida. We take you down to the Kissimmee chain, starting in Kissimmee, Florida, on Lake Toho. Also involved Lake Cypress, Hatchenhaw, and of course, Lake Kissimmee, the hugest lake, the largest lake in this competition. Tell us about these bodies of water, Denny.
Well, Lake Toho obviously had probably the most recognition going in, and it's held up. A lot of fish were caught there. A few fish were caught in Lake Cypress, and as you go on down, you're getting to the big story, and that's Kissimmee Lake. This is where a bunch of the great big stringers have come from, them 20-pound-plus bags. The only sleeper there is the Kissimmee River itself. Rick Morris is basically down there by himself. He's caught 2 18-pound-plus stringers, and that may hold up again today.
All right, he's been the most consistent so far, but take a look at the movement already going on that leaderboard. All the way up into second place, George Cochran, 2 times a Classic champion. He knows how to win here. He's got 3 fish, and he's moved within 4 pounds, less than 4 pounds actually, of our leader, Luke Clausen. Well, let's take a look at what happened on day 2 of this competition. Day 2 of the competition was moving day, as we say. You had to make it on day number 2, which meant it was a day you had to do what you had to do in order to get the job done. Boy, take a look at the lock right there. There was the scene in the lock. Kevin Van Dam finally gets through it. He moves all the way down the canal. He's headed for Lake Kissimmee. Ish Monroe also made it. There we are, one of our local Florida boys, Preston Clark, sold insurance for 16 years, and now he is definitely living the dream. Did not have a big a day on day 2 as he had on day 1. Luke Clausen, same story for him, but good enough to maintain that lead. The legend, Rick Clunn, pulls him some huge fish on day 1. And he backs it up with a good day on day 2. Greg Hackney, he hasn't done well in Classic so far, but he's looking to break the curse this time around. Kevin Worth from Kentucky started slow, but got back up into that top 5 after 2 days of fishing. Edwin Evers from Oklahoma, very strong contender here. He likes that heavy cover, and this is a man who likes big fish and knows how to catch them. Our defending champion, Kevin Van Dam. As we say, it was moving day, a day when perhaps you had to improvise, you had to deal with adversity, you had to get out in the thick of it, and you had to get the job done. And when the day was done, we have 25 anglers, 25 with a chance at the title at the World Championship of Fishing. Jeff Coble, how about that guy? Qualifies from the ESPN Bassmaster Series basically for the weekend anglers.
Yeah, Jeff's an excellent angler. He does well in big events like this. We figured he'd do well coming in, and that's holding up. He's already got 1 fish in the live well. A lot of these guys are just now getting to their spots, so they haven't caught anything yet, but they got a lot of time left.
Gerald Swindle had a terrible first day, moves up, though, into those contenders on today. Dean Roas, who set all the records here, back in 2001, he's got a shot at it too, although it might be a long shot. Greg Hackney made it as well, Ish Monroe, and Tommy Biffle, as we say in there. How do you cover a playing field this big? 100 square miles out there on Lake Kissimmee, the Kissimmee chain, Lake Toho. Well, you have some hard-charging reporters. We're going to take you out on the water right now with Robbie Floyd. What are you looking at, Robbie?
I've got some of the base of the top anglers today, some top of the pack, middle of the pack, and bottom of the pack, but, you know, there's a little hint of what you've got. But Terry Scroggins, his go-to bait, it's in my pocket. I'll show you a little bit later, but I'm going to go find out where Terry is on the Kissimmee side. Kim, where are you at?
I'm at the lock, Robbie, about to head down to Kissimmee. I'm going to go in search of Luke Clausen, our tournament leader, coming into today. We'll see where he's at. We'll see what he's doing. And we've got some bad weather out here, a little bit of rain coming through. It's not too windy right now. It's important for those anglers to get down there, get where they need to go and get those fish in the boat before the wind picks up. So we'll go check out Luke and see what he's doing. Over to you, Tommy.
Well, Kim, stay dry, although I know that is not going to be possible on this special final day of the championship. Helping us with all the analysis, of course, Jerry McInnes. He's inside the Classic Expo. And Jerry, I know you have some definite thoughts about what might and what might not happen today.
You know, I went outside early this morning and it was raining a little bit, but it was still warm. And I said, golly, somebody's going to catch a big string of fish today. And I think everyone ought to watch for that. You know, 2 days ago, we had the biggest bass ever, 11.5 pounds caught in a Classic. I predict that that's going to be broken today. It will anchor a 30-pound stringer of fish, which will also be a new Classic record. And those 2 things right there could give us a really surprising a surprising competitor coming from behind. You know, I know you, Denny, you and Tommy both are have a little bit of doubt about my prediction here. I'm strong. I really feel good about that. Watch out, everybody. We're going to see the scores scrolling by all day long, and I want you to pay attention to them because some name is going to pop up there, and it's going to surprise the heck out of everybody.
All right, Jerry. Well, you know, we may be in doubt about it, but it sounds like a pretty good script. We certainly hope it comes through. Let's take a look. We say the weather is going to be one of the biggest players on the field out there today. Temperature of 68, but that wind is swapping around all the way to the north. It had been blowing straight out of the south. We got storms coming through all the time. One of the big stories we are following here is the fact that 2 Florida anglers in the contention on this final day. What does everyone think about the possibility of a local angler winning the championship?
Guys that understand how to catch Florida fish under tough conditions will excel.
Fishing this chain of lakes is going to be like coming back home.
The Florida guys have a little bit of an advantage, but they've got that hometown pressure on them as well.
Other than my home body of water, I know this chain of lakes better than anywhere else in the country.
ESPN's live coverage of the CITGO 2006 Bassmaster Classic is brought to you by CITGO and in part by Lowrance Electronics and PUROLATor. Final day of the CITGO Bassmaster Classic 2006, the 36th edition of the Classic. $500,000 on the line. Someone will be crowned the world champion of bass fishing today. Our lakes are on the Kissimmee chain: Lake Toho, Lake Kissimmee, Hatchinahaw, and Lake Cypress. And a lot of stories working out there today. We're giving you live coverage all the way up to 10:30. Another Bass Center comes your way then. So we got a lot to look at today, a day when the weather is really changing things. One of the stories we're following is the fact that we got 2 Florida anglers most definitely in contention as the weather whips up here in our studio. These guys out there are going through a lot today. Denny, these guys know how to handle the weather out there. Man, oh man, take a look at what's going on here from our vantage point. But take a look at our home state anglers. Terry Scroggins and Preston Clark, both from the same small town of Palatka, Florida, just up the road. Both of them with a lot of experience here on Lake Toho and the Kissimmee chain. Let's take a look at the Day 2 map for Terry Scroggins. I know you practiced with Terry Scroggins on one of these days, Denny. Tell us what he's doing out there during this Classic Championship.
I really did practice with him, Tommy, and he ran all the way down to Kissimmee right off the bat on his practice day. Actually ran a little further down than where he's at right now. He was flipping maths. But the first day he didn't do any good in that, and obviously he tried a few of those same places yesterday. But look where he goes now. He makes a huge run to a different area. He told me last night he had not practiced in this area. This is a spot he just found, and it paid off big time. He was super pumped about it.
Terry Scroggins, the man they call Big Show. His compadre from Palatka, Florida, also down here in it to win it, is Preston Clark. Preston Clark had a fantastic day number 1, and he now holds the record for the largest bass ever caught in Classic competition. Tell us what he's been doing.
Well, he's actually been sight fishing. He's only about 5 minutes from takeoff. He's around that boat dock area. He's been actually push-poling himself around, finding a fish on the bed, backing up and trying to catch it, and then he moves on and hunts for another one. But he stayed primarily in one area.
You talk about ham and egg in it. What if these guys were a team? One guy has his big day on day number 1. Preston Clark comes in with almost 30 pounds of fish in day number 1. And day number 2, Terry Scroggins comes back from about 10 pounds on day number 1. And he himself pulls in almost 30 pounds of fish on day number 2. These guys know how to work this chain of lakes right here. We take a look at Preston Clark on day number 2. Well, our hometown heroes both had some very definite opinions about their chances of winning. Both of them feel confident.
Yeah, Preston Clark and I used to fish local team tournaments together. He is my old fishing partner, so he knows a lot of what I know, and I know a lot of what he knows.
We were both raised in this area. Yeah. Growing up here in Florida, I knew what I had to do to get close enough to the big fish.
I got a lot of friends and family down here. Everybody's expecting me to do well, and that's what's such a great feeling about catching them today. You know, yesterday I didn't do too good, and people kind of talking a little bit. Kind of satisfied with them today.
Sunday is the day that you close the deal.
The hometown advantage. Well, the home state advantage, well, there's 2 sides to that coin. A lot of people call it the hometown curse, the home state curse. No one has ever won the Classic in their home state. 3 of them have come close: Woo Dave, Jack Chancellor, Dalton Bobo, but no one has really been able to seal the deal to win it in their home state. Is it really a curse, and why, Denny?
Well, you got a lot of pressure on you from the media. Everybody thinks you're going to win. You start to put a little bit of that pressure on yourself. Not a good thing. But ultimately, you've got better knowledge of the body of water. You need to just go and fish and forget about about all that other stuff. And we got 2 anglers that are doing a good job of that. One of them, I predict, is going to win.
All right, we'll watch that prediction. We're watching the weather as well. We can't help but watch the weather. Man out there in the middle of it is Robbie Floyd. Robbie, who are you looking at?
I think you had it right the first time. I look like a minnow out here, a drowned one right now. I think Terry Scroggins has to be the favorite. I know I've been talking to him through the week. I've also watched his positioning. He's going to be burning more gas. I don't care how good the gas mileage is on these boats. He's going to be turning and burning today, just like he has the past couple of days. He's going all the way down to Kissimmee, and he's working the outside of the lake. He's making a full-on lap. It's a perfect classic case of a guy knowing a ton of places to be, but just like we saw Jason Quinn in his home lake at Lake Wiley, sometimes they could jump up and bite you. George Cochran, though, I'm working my way to the first log, and before I got there, I heard you talk about George Cochran catching a big bass. He already has 3 fish. He has jumped from 8th place to 2nd place. This is the 96 Classic, or the 96 Classic champion who's making a big move. He's caught it on the south end of Toho, and I know exactly where he's at, so I'm going to try and get an update on George, Tommy.
All right, well, Robbie, George Cochran, did you have a chance to talk to him this morning? How confident is he feeling? This guy is a very low-key angler, as we all know, and, you know, he may feel no pressure at all on this final day. He may have ice water in his veins.
I think you may be right. I didn't get to talk to him this morning because of the delayed launch. They actually didn't bring him over to me, and I knew I'd get caught in the middle somewhere, but I did talk to him yesterday. He was one of the last guys weighed in. I did talk to him, and he said, you know what, I was kind of down. It came till the very end, and he caught 2 of his biggest fish at the very end. He said he was fighting the wind all day, and finally he went to a protected area on the south end, and he said that's where he caught him. I'm literally working my way. I got to sit still for a moment so you can get the feed, but I'm working my way that side, and it's kind of weird because that should be the windward side. It should be blowing towards him. So obviously, you know, he likes the area and he's catching the fish, but I do believe the wind has shifted the opposite direction.
All right, Robbie Floyd, thank you so much. Out there on the water, we're doing our best to deal with the water in here. Excuse the way we look. Hey, we're just as into it as we could possibly be. We're going to keep up our live coverage today. Take a look at our update right now. George Cochran, the man making the move, 2-time Classic champ, still so far with almost a 5-pound lead. It's Luke Clausen, the youngest angler in this competition. We're braving the elements. We're going to continue the coverage for you. Stay with us. We are back. The CITGO Bassmaster Classic, the World Championship of Bass Fishing. We're coming to you from Lake Toho in Kissimmee, Florida. Kissimmee, Florida today experiencing what they call down here in this state a little liquid sunshine, and it's going sideways at this particular moment in time. Beautiful Lake Toho is not as beautiful as it usually is today, but we got some guys out there that are hardly noticing the weather. They are fighting for it all to win the World Championship of Bass Fishing. Let's take a look at, they've got two classics here on Lake Toho. The first one was way back almost 30 years ago. Take a look at the number of competitors, only 26 guys back in the day, 51 coming up today. The average age, pretty close to the same, but the big difference, well, the big difference is that prize money, $25,000 versus $500,000 today. That changes everything.
Yeah, $500,000 changes a lot, but this weather, it's going to change. We're sitting pretty soon, Tommy, because it's getting it here. I have fished in weather like this, but I've never been on set in weather like this.
All right, talk about fishing in this weather. What's the biggest challenge to these guys out there? Obviously we've got 25 miles an hour winds, wind blowing and rain blowing sideways.
Well, the rain's a good thing. The cloud cover's a good thing, but when the wind's blowing like this, it can dirty up areas. It can actually keep you from fishing areas. There's areas out there right now where it's dangerous to be in because of the big waves. So anglers are going to have to go to places they've never ever fished before. This is a bad deal.
Let's take a look at this radar. We had a squall line move through early this morning. We thought we were all done, and this thing sort of backs up, reforms again, and we are being hit with it one more time. There you are. You see Kissimmee right there. We're in the epicenter of all the bad stuff that's going on right now. Looks like it's moving through just a little bit, so maybe things will get back to normal. We'll have a little bit of a slower rain here in a few moments, but we're dealing with it. We're getting through it. It's the most exciting day in fishing. Really, nothing can stop the enthusiasm. Well, if you rain or shine, if you want to win the $500,000, if you want to win it all, you definitely got to play by the rules. You don't want to get yourself disqualified. Let's take a look at our rules of the game, presented by Toyota.
Hi, I'm Mike Iaconelli.
Hi, I'm Chad Morgan-Taylor. Hi, I'm Ish Monroe, and these are the rules of the game. The world's best anglers compete in the 2006 CITGO Bassmaster Classic. 3 days of competition.
3 days of cracking the whip on Lake Kissimmee.
Lake Toho.
Lake Hatchinahaw.
Lake Cypress.
It's a catch and release tournament.
You're allowed to keep 5 bass a day.
Day 2 is elimination day.
The top 25 qualify to fish the third and final round.
The angler with the heaviest weight
We'll be your 2006
CITGO Bassmasters Classic World Champion.
It's our Toyota rules of the game. Looking at the leaderboard right now, and we see George Cochran is the man who has made the move so far. A guy who's been there, a guy who doesn't get too excited. Well, he gets excited about classics, but he doesn't show it.
He doesn't show it. This man has no emotion. He just goes out there and fishes. You can't, if you were looking at George, you couldn't tell if he had 30 pounds or 3 pounds. He's that type of methodical angler, and jumping up that close, he could be a factor before the day's over, but he's got a lot of ground to make up on the leaders.
Talk about his strengths, Denny, as we look at the highlights from each day from George Cochran.
Well, when fishing gets real tough, George is great at fishing slow, getting in an area and just kind of piddling around, taking his time, working it very thorough. He's probably one of the world's best at that. And as you can see, he didn't even get excited when he catches a fish. So nothing's going to bother George, including this weather.
All right, some good keepers on each of these days for George Cochran. Been very consistent throughout this classic. It may be consistency that pays off. Age 55, one of the oldest anglers in the classic. 21 classic appearances. Hey, Jerry McInnes is a guy who's followed George Cochran for a great many years. Jerry, what have you got for us on the man who has got 2 classics in his back pocket already?
You know, Tommy, I did want to pipe up a little bit here about George Cochran. I think it's very important for all these anglers to know how to win. And that sound, you know, it might be a little bit confusing, but some of these guys do know how to win. Some of them have never experienced that yet. George can be a real threat because he has won a number of times in really clutch situations. So that kind of guy is always a threat, regardless of the weather or the lures or the techniques. George knows how to win.
All right, thank you so much, Jerry. We'll be watching George. I know you're watching him as well. Let's go to our Google Earth map and take a look at what George Cochran has been up to today on our Kissimmee chain of lakes. George Cochran, of course, 2 Bassmaster Classics. I think it looks like he did a little work there on Lake Toho. All right, that's what George Cochran is up to today, making a run at that classic crown. Hey, Robbie, I know you've been looking at George Cochran, following his action today. What's going on right now?
Starting to work my way towards George. I'm still in Toho. I'm trying to find him. There's actually a couple of boats here. I was starting to get reports that Luke Clausen is actually working the east side of Lake Kissimmee. That's exactly where Terry Scroggins told me he was going. He already has a fish today. So Luke Clausen predominantly the past 2 days has started at the south end of Kissimmee, and now it looks like he's starting that north or that eastern side of Kissimmee instead of going directly south, because he's kind of been backing up these past 2 days. I'm trying to find George. I think he's moving a little bit here on the south end of Toho, so I'm going to find him out where he is, and I'm going to try and give you an update on him really soon.
Hey, Robbie, I know moving around out there is very hard. We appreciate your hustle. Let's take a look at who's had the most classic appearances. Hey, there's a record that may never be equal. Rick Clunn. Roland Martin, second place. Roland, of course, has retired. Larry Nixon up there, Gary Klein, and right there in the over 20 appearances is George Cochran right there. All right, let's take a look at our leader right now. Luke Clausen, the youngest man in the field, as opposed to George Cochran's age of 55. Luke is but 27 years old, and he's shown a lot of poise, Denny Brower, so far in this tournament.
He really has. He's keeping in the same area, Tommy, and I think that's real important. He's got a lot of confidence there. He knows there's some big fish there. It's held up for 2 days. I think he's going to have to get one of them giant fish again today and get up there around 20 pounds in order to pull it off. But he's got a good area, and it's working for him.
Boy, look at all those fish catches, all those big fish that have come through for Luke Cochran. Let's take a look. Luke Clausen, pardon me very much there. Our leader, Luke Clausen, from the Spokane Valley in Washington. Take a look at his highlights from day number 2. We know he's fishing a soft plastic bait, Denny, most of the time.
Yeah, he's fishing around isolated lily pads from what we've seen the last 2 days, and those fish are just set up at the bases of those pads, kind of throwing a worm or some type of soft plastic, just fishing it real slow.
We know that Luke Clausen has won big tournaments in the past here. as we say, he can handle this classic pressure. So, boy, don't look for him to fade too much in this final day, although he really doesn't have much going yet. No fish, our Bass Tracker tells us, have been caught yet by Luke Clausen.
He could be one of those anglers, Tommy, that the weather's affecting his spot.
I caught that male off this morning, came back to it, and she was sitting there.
Almost 30 pounds on day one. He was certainly down in his per fish size on day number 2, and there's one of the reasons right there. You can't lose big ones in a big thing like this.
Key strikes, key bites. You don't want to miss a fish. You don't want to lose a fish. You got to be totally focused. That could cost him the Classic right there, $500,000.
Your profile of Luke Clausen from the Spokane Valley in Washington will be the first Classic winner from the state of Washington if he can pull it off. His 3rd Classic appearance. Best finish so far? Well, he's never made the cut, and he hasn't made any fish catches yet. On this final day, championship day, he's going to have to be patient with all this weather. How can you be patient? You've got to be getting excited. Luke Clausen there is the man so far, but George Cochran, boy, a wily veteran who's been there before. He's the man making a major move right now. Don't take... Hey, Kevin Van Dam moving up the leaderboard as well. He's our defending champion. So many folks moving. We'll be right back.
Bass Center in-game update is brought to you by Lowrance Electronics.
Welcome back to the Bass Center in-game. I am Mark Zona. He is Trey Reed, and we were going to try to get through this whole day without getting soaking wet, and that's not going to happen, Zona. No, Kernan and Byron ran in the trailer. We're not like that. Anyway, the guys are catching them out there, but we have bad weather coming in. Heavy rains right behind us and about 30-mile-an-hour winds, about 4 minutes out right now.
Yeah, and they also say, Zona, that the temperature is going to drop about 10 degrees behind this weather that we're seeing coming in right now.
Oh, that sounds delightful. I look forward to staying out here all day. I don't think the heavy stuff's going to come out down for a while, Trey Reed.
No, absolutely not. But I tell you what, the thing is, these guys are not going to slow down out there. You know, I've seen it before, and I'm sure it's happening right now out here. They're going to keep fishing. They will not stop. One guy who's making a big move right now is George Cochran.
Oh, yeah.
George is a 2-time Classic winner, one of 3 guys who is a multiple Classic winner, along with Kevin Van Dam and obviously Rick Clunn. George has felt that pressure before. He's going to be able to take it.
Nice, yes. That is nice, isn't it?
It is.
It is.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
And if there's a guy that knows how to win, definitely George Cochran. But we're seeing some shift in the standings right now. Clausen still setting in first, but definitely a hard charge from George Cochran. And we're getting a hard charge from the rain right now,
Very hard charge. One of the things, Zone, I want to point out that these guys, you know, they needed to catch them early today, right? But the wind is going to be a big factor later because they say this rain is going to blow through here pretty fast. Unfortunately, not fast enough for us. But after that, we're going to have some 20 to 30-mile-an-hour winds, and it's going to be out of the north. Now, Ron Shuffield, who was in 2nd place, told me yesterday he needed a south wind.
Yeah.
This is not going to help his chances.
Definitely hurting right now. And the biggest thing people might not know is these guys don't stop when it's like this out here. And neither do Trey Reed and Mark Zona, definitely. Tommy Sanders, back to you guys, and I'm hoping a much, much drier place.
Ready for a little shot of whiskey back there in the truck for you?
That'd be good.
All right. Welcome back. It's our coverage of the CITGO Bassmaster Classic for 2006. As you can tell, the weather most definitely a factor on this final day. Man, oh man, what a day it has been. Boy, guys, Denny Brower, now we welcome Mark Menendez. What do you think of this? I mean, these guys, they don't really notice it out there, do they?
Well, Tommy, I tell you, this can be it can change everything. Everybody's been fishing so slow, and you're not able to fish slow now. You've got to pick up a spinnerbait and just try to cover some water. It may make those fish get away from some of that cover a little bit and make that spinnerbait more effective.
All right, Denny, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree exactly with what he's saying. The only problem there, some of those areas are going to get so trashed that even a spinnerbait will not be effective, because when you get 25, 30-mile-an-hour winds beating on some of those banks, even though a spinnerbait might catch the fish, you can't maneuver your boat correctly.
Exactly, and these fish are very, very prone to living in clean water, and a little bit of turbulence in the water shuts the bite completely off, Tommy.
Absolutely. All right. Mark Menendez, we appreciate your effort, your hustle getting over. Maybe we should tell everyone why Mark Menendez is with us on the set. Of course, we welcome him anytime because of his great expertise and analysis. But Mark Menendez's comeback story through this year of 2005 into 2006 has been a remarkable one. Fell by illness earlier in the season. He did almost the unthinkable. He worked his way back to the CITGO Bassmaster Classic, an inspirational story.
You ready? Let's go get a truck. Come on, buddy. Let's go fishing. You ready to catch one? That's what I thought. It's been a while since we've been out here together. We didn't know there for a while if we were ever going to get to do this again, but it sure is nice to be up here where we belong. The illness kind of caught me off guard. I was at Guntersville at a tour event. I called my wife Donna and said, hey, I'm on the ground, I'm safe, but I've got a headache like I've never had. He called my dermatologist and he asked her to perform a couple simple tests, and he could hear me screaming in the background. Said, Donna, take him to the hospital and tell them he has meningitis. Go now, don't waste any time. During the initial stages of being in the hospital in Alabama, it killed me. The headaches were intense during that time period, and you just don't have any strength to amount to anything. There's my daughter Caroline. We've got another child coming. I'm gonna have to get well so that I can provide a means so that I can raise my children. I tried not to focus on the what if I wouldn't be able to continue to fish, but it would etch its way into my mind, and it really was depressing. So anytime I could go to my dad's and fish in his front yard for 15 or 20 minutes, or get in the boat and organize my tackle, it lifted my spirits because I knew fishing was out there for me somewhere. My first event back was in West Point in Alabama. Not really ready to compete, was worn out, actually took a day off of practice because I was just so tired, and things fell into place perfectly. The first day of the tournament, I was in 3rd place. Second day, I was leading it. And the last day, I caught enough fish to win the event by 7 pounds. And that was the confidence I'd been lacking due to my illness. I didn't know if I'd ever get to do this again, but by winning that tournament, it put me into high gear, saying, you know, hey, you still got it in you.
A couple of months later, our son is born and everything crashed again. 3 hours after he was born, he was in an airplane going to Cosair Medical Children's Hospital. That was really hard. They told us there's a possibility that he wouldn't make it past 48 hours.
We went to Louisville. I had a tournament coming up in Guntersville. Max's stay had to be extended about 3 days, so he had to stay there. Donna had to stay in Louisville, and she urged me. She says, Mark, you got to go. I didn't want to go to the tournament. I wanted to stay there with them, and she says, you know, I've got it covered. He's going to be all right, so let's go on and get you on down to the next event so that you can get to the Classic.
I really wanted him to be there, especially after the year he had.
Little large head, all right. It's just an awesome feeling to have qualified again. It means so much to a fisherman. That's how we gain our credibility, our stature within the business. There's a fish. There's a fish. All right. Oh, it's a good bass, too. All right. What do you say, Barkley? How about that?
From what we've been through, fishing doesn't really make that much of a difference in life, but he loves it. And for him to win the Classic would be a dream come true.
5 like that every morning in the Classic, Barkley, will get us started real quick. That's the first fish caught in this boat. See, I would have had to stay till at least, you know, noon or 2 or 3 fishing until I caught one, because you'd never want to go and fish the first day with your new boat and not catch one out of it. Mission accomplished.
What an incredible, inspirational year for Mark Menendez. There's the timeline. Back in February, struck down with the viral meningitis, comes back to win his first big tournament to start that journey back into Classic competition. His son, Max, and all the complications, born in September, through September, and then qualifies for the 06 Bassmaster Classic at the Open Championship. Just an incredible story. And Mark Menendez, thank you so much for being with us today. We're sorry, in a way, that you're with us today because you're not out there fishing. But, man, making it back this far is just more than anyone could possibly expect from a guy.
Well, Tommy, I tell you what, I'm excited about this Classic as if it were my first. To get back just tells me that, you know, I'm here. I'm ready to rock and roll again. I'm going to take all the momentum from the Southern Opens, the Open Championship, and I'm going to apply that towards the new Elite Series Tour, and I'm going to rock and roll from there.
Talk about your health right now. I know you've got still issues with stability and stamina.
It's tough, Tommy. Some days I get out there and I feel like I could run a 5-mile race right now. The next time I pick up the trolling motor and get ready to make a cast, I don't have any legs, so I just have to sit there and fish sitting down, which is not my normal style. But you learn to cope with it. You learn to pace yourself, and then you just try to be as effective as you can.
I know Jerry McKinnis, who's in the Expo Center, has a question for you, Mark. Jerry?
Well, guys, I know that at one point Mark had the record for the largest bass ever caught in a Bassmaster event. I think that has been broken since, but he has another record that has not been broken. He's the only guy to have ever fished in the Bassmaster Classic with his dog in the boat. And Mark, I want to know how Barkley's doing and where is he at today?
Well, Barkley's doing great, Jerry. He's got a new job. He is the head of security at the Menendez Family Circus, and he's doing well. He's taking care of Max and Caroline while we're down here in sunny Florida, as you can see. So he's doing great, and I can't wait to see him tomorrow night.
And I would imagine that Barkley would be taking care of business.
Oh, he's taking care of it. You know it, Jerry. He's a little long lost not being here in sunny Florida with me this time, but we had to delegate him some new authority, and he's taking his job seriously.
That's great.
Mark, we were thinking about you, of course, all year long as you go through that illness, and a guy who competes at the very top level in a sport to suddenly be struck down, to be taken out of the game. I'm sure the depression is one of the issues that you had to deal with. Who wouldn't have to deal with that?
It really scared me, Tommy. Here I am. I'm a new father. Caroline is young. Max came along. I've got all these responsibilities, and this is my job. This is what I do, and I may not be able to make another cast ever again. Let me tell you, you spend some time soul searching, and I'm just so fortunate that I don't have any lingering effects, and that I can get back in the bow of my bass boat and compete at this level.
Well, that day one had to be so sensational for you to do so well on that first day of the Classic.
It was just amazing. I made a great cast with that big Strike King toad, and a big giant bass ate at Denny, and it got me right back in the game.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark Menendez. An inspirational story for everyone. Thanks for joining us, and continue good luck to our man, Mark Menendez. We're going to take you out on the water for an update right now. Who have we got waiting? Hey, some George Cochran highlights. All right, let's take a look at the fishing from today from George Cochran. This was very early in the morning. Remember, that takeoff was delayed.
He just fishing a bunch of scattered Kissimmee grass, the way it looks, Tommy. Throwing a plastic worm, working it through there, fishing real slow like George always does. He does not get excited. You can't get this man excited.
George Cochran likes to get out in those large, flat areas of shallow water and fish that vegetation. He almost broke some of the records in Guntersville a couple of years ago doing just about the same thing.
Got a big old fish on there. You notice George reels with his left hand. He's one of the few anglers that does that.
All right. Left-handers can get the job done as well. George Cochran out there certainly making a major move on this final day, championship day. What's he doing out there that you can see that maybe we're not seeing, Robbie Floyd? What's his secret today?
Well, my official spotter, Dirty Harry Potts, it looks like he might have some type of speed shad out there. I talked to one of the guys when I first made it over here. One of the guys that had been watching him said he had he was fishing a worm wacky style, and then of course he had that horny toad type bait. But it looks like perfect condition. Actually, the wind's just now starting to pick up. When I come over here, no wind at all. It was pretty calm. But if you look straight down, I don't know if you can see it in the water at all, but if you look down, you're seeing a lot of algae, a lot of grass. The water depth right here, I'm in 8, but I think it's kind of lying to me. It looks like it's been about 3 to 4 foot of water at the most. But you can see the Kissimmee grass throughout, but there's a lot of algae on here, and that kind of brings me to a point that I was talking to Kevin Van Dam earlier, and he said he was planning on using a spinner bait throughout the day, but you know, you got to watch out. He said evidently it disturbs the fish along with the pressure when it knocks off the algae off a lot of stuff, and obviously I'm seeing a lot of clung algae in this spot, so it might be very conducive for catching fish right now. It looks like great conditions.
Hey, Robbie, looks like he's also like he's in a very, very exposed place right now. Is that affecting? Is boat control an issue for him? Is he trying to stay off of spots? Is he trying to stay off of fish?
He's actually not really exposed because right behind the camera a little bit is a tree line. So I think he's getting a lot of block. It seems like the wind's switching just a little bit. He's out a little ways. I'm going to say 400 or 500 yards from the actual bank. But it's been pretty protected. I think the wind's kind of switching around a little bit, and obviously word's getting out because I'm seeing a couple more boats coming over here. But I think the weather is just now starting to come around where George is, where it might have hit some of the other guys earlier.
All right, thank you so much, Robbie. We'll keep our eye on George Cochran, but for now, it's still Luke Clausen, the young angler from the state of Washington, with the lead, but he's been cut into just a little bit by the veteran from Arkansas, George Cochran. We're on top of it. We'll be right back.
We came up with the idea that no one would know where they were going to fish in the tournament. It was going to call the Mr. Classic.
May I see a show of hands of everyone that was positive where we were going before last night?
There was a lot of mystery to it, which made everybody enjoy it.
People saying we're going to Mexico, we're going to Canada, you know, we're going down into Cuba.
Very important that we didn't want anybody to have fished that lake.
Literally. The idea was to take these anglers and parachute them into a lake they'd never fished and see who had come out the best.
Boy, times have changed since back in the old days. The first Classic back in 1971. Take a look at the boats today. They have more in common with a fighter jet than they do with what these guys fished in way back in the day. But back in the day, you know what? They were considered pretty darn sophisticated for that day and time. Most of these people had fished out of flat-bottom boats. This was the state-of-the-art back in 1971. Denny Brower, do you know the brand of this boat right here?
I really don't. I think it was made by Rebel Boat Company, if I'm correct.
It was a Rebel boat. The company that made the lures, Fort Smith, Arkansas, actually produced this inboard, outboard motor. You see the guys leaning so hard, trying to get the thing to plane off when they took off at Lake Mead there in that very first Classic. All right, well, let's take a look at a brand new schedule again for the first time ever. We're having the Classic to start the season. Our Classic starting here in February. Man, it is a whole new ball game for all of these anglers, and the new ball game continues throughout this entire 2006 season. We go from a limited number of events to a lot of events for the Elite Series, the top anglers in the sport of fishing. From 6 to 11 regular season events. We're now going to 12 states. They call it the Elite 50, and we also add 3 known as majors. Big tournaments, 50 anglers only for big, big money. Look at that Classic first prize, $500,000. All the changes. How are the anglers liking them? Well, they're liking the places they're going to fish, I can tell you that.
I've heard it all year. It is starting, Classic in the winter. Is it good? Is it bad? Hey, as long as we're moving forward, it's all good.
I compare it to the Daytona 500 in NASCAR. You know, we're starting with our biggest event.
Yes. You better be on your A game when you get here and not ease into it.
The fishermen are pretty set in their ways. There's no doubt about that. But, change is fun at times. There's always things to be excited about, and I think the excitement here is a chance of catching a really big fish. It's kind of hard to get in the Classic mode because usually we have 3 or 4 months to think about it. And this time we haven't had the time to get prepared for it.
I ain't scared to change. If this is what it takes to go to the next level, let's fish it whenever. But I think it's going to be different. It's going to offer the fans a new look, and it's going to offer the fishermen a chance to fish at a different time of year size when it's just burning hot.
We're going to hit a time of the year right now when most people are cold and they can't go fishing. So what's the next best thing to do? That's watch it.
This is the Daytona 500 and the Super Bowl all wrapped into one right here.
Denny Brower, Shaw Grigsby joins us right now. Shaw, thanks for coming in with all your expertise. Got to ask you guys, what do you think of the new world order we got right now in the sport of bass fishing?
I've never been this excited. I've been doing this for a lot of years. For one thing, we've got 14 events if you include the majors. Huge opportunities to win money for a lot of anglers, and plus we're going to the best lakes in the United States. If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what does.
Exactly, and we're talking, when we started Amistad, and that's just in a week. I mean, we got 1 week off between the Classic, then we get a week off, and then we start our E-Series. And that Elite Series in Amistad is going to be giant fish. Then we go straight to Rayburn, giant fish. You've won like 3 tournaments on Rayburn?
I've won twice,
okay.
And you've won twice, I think.
All right, guys.
3 times, all right.
We're going to hold that thought because we're going to get back to the schedule. The weather that hit us a few minutes ago has now made its way down to Lake Kissimmee, as you predicted it would, Shaw. Robbie Floyd is standing by. Robbie, what's it looking like out there right now?
Guys, right now, George Cochran is heading for cover. I mean, it was super calm, and all of a sudden it looks like a tornado's about to come through here, but it's not. It's just a solid line of rain, and these are the conditions we thought were going to be here. And I hate to tell you, they're on top of us right now. It is crazy how bad the weather has turned in literally the past 30 seconds. I'm getting the heck out of here.
Good job. Stay safe there, Robbie, and do the best you can. That's what all these guys have to do right now. How do you deal? I mean, what do you do right now when it's really its worst? You can't possibly fish when you're getting blown out of the boat, right?
Well, it's a dangerous situation right now, and what he needs to do is get to a place where it's safe, get out of those big waves. I don't know if they're getting any lightning down there, but, a bass isn't worth it. $500,000 is a lot of money, but it's not worth getting killed over.
I've not seen any lightning. Have you seen any lightning, Shaw?
That's the good thing. We haven't seen any lightning, and without the lightning, they're still safe. And literally, I've had winds where you just couldn't even make a cast and blow it back at you. You just hunker down and start fishing. But if you get lightning, you need to back off settle down.
All
We've
right.
had some scary things happen with lightning.
The pros say, hey, the fish are under the water. They're in it all the time.
They love it.
Does it affect it? It doesn't really affect them, does it?
I think it does affect them once in a while. If you get the thunder, if you do get the lightning in that, these fish get tight to the cover. They don't want to bite for a while. They can just totally throw the bite off for a half hour, an hour after a big system comes through. So this is not a plus for the anglers at all right now.
Denny, you've already touched on this big time today about the clarity of the water and how crucial that is to catching these Florida bass. I want Shaw to chime in on that, the man from Gainesville.
Clarity is always an issue. The clearer, the better. But with clear water, when you get this stirring up of the wind and stuff, now we're not muddying it, but when you get all this wind and the rain, it really turns them on.
All right, Robbie Floyd, I know you're getting hammered right now, Robbie, but we want to see what it's like. We have sort of a curiosity about it. I hope you're okay, first of all.
Yeah, we're good right now. Like you said, there is no lightning. It is just, I mean, severe storms. It looks like George's packing up. We're going to try and move and follow him right now. But, I mean, it was crazy just how much that wind came in. But I'm going to stick with him and find out where he's going, because if he can catch a few more pounds, he might be our new leader.
All right, well, Robbie, we have heard that Luke Clausen's cameraman, our leader in the tournament, has fallen in the boat. How that's going to affect our coverage, we don't know at this point. We're hoping for the best. We're keeping our fingers crossed. But, man, anything can happen. A lot of safety issues, as both of you guys have pointed out, in this kind of weather.
That could be an indication just how rough the water is where he's fishing. If his cameraman's actually falling down, his spot may be getting totally trashed out.
You know, these are the things that we have to go through as anglers that most of the general public doesn't really understand. A lot of the other sports, and they're really tough sports that are out there, they don't have to deal with this. I mean, they pack it up, put a tarp on it, they're in the house, or they just don't play. We got to stay out there, keep going, flipping, pitching, casting, and we got to keep catching them.
Yeah. Bass fishermen and football, those are the guys who stay after it. Hey, all right. All right, Jerry McKinnis is going to take us in. These guys are using their boats for protection now instead of transportation. Jerry McKinnis is going to show us these boats that we've got on display in the expo.
Yeah, and guys, I'm almost ashamed of the fact that I'm in this boat and it's not pouring down rain. We're in the Coliseum. Of course, it has not opened yet. The doors hasn't opened, so it's kind of quiet in here. But this boat has become very important today. Yeah, you know, most of the time the viewers see the fishermen up here in the front end of the boat, very, very peacefully fishing. Everything's really cool. But you need to understand that this, believe me, is a sophisticated piece of machinery as a NASCAR. Believe me, that seems like the truth. Doggone. Sitting here.
All right.
Yeah,
all right. We're waiting for Jerry to come back with his audio there. We'll get that report. I mean, but to finish it up for him there, guys, this thing is more like a jet plane than it is the bass boats from years ago.
Oh, yeah, they've come a long, long way, Tommy. In them early days, they had no speed. They really had no power to develop speed. Now we've got great live well systems. You don't have to worry about the fish near as much. They're easier to put on plane with a big load of weight. In other words, if you've got 3 or 4 people, you could still get it up on plane. It'll carry that weight. Just a lot of advancements, but mainly the safety of these rigs.
Safety is a major issue. Speed, we've really increased the speed, and we have GPS, sonar, we've got it all. I mean, you talk about in the old days, we would run down a lake and have to learn, okay, we turn left at this tree to make it back in there. Now you're just watching a map. Poof, there you go. It's just like you're you know, flying in an airplane with the big map up there, and there's your plane going. You've got it all.
All right, Jerry's back up again, and he's going to finish showing us that boat because it is an amazing thing. Go, Jerry.
Guys, it was raining so hard in here a minute ago that I lost my audio.
Enough of that, okay.
Yeah, take another look at my console here, and boy, I am set up. I've got, like Shaw was just mentioning, I've got my sonar, I've got my GPS, and these guys really pay attention to that. Now, incidentally, this rig weighs 3,000 pounds, plus put a couple of anglers in it and all the tackling. You know, a NASCAR only weighs a couple of hundred more pounds than that, so I'm comparing it to a NASCAR, aren't I? Well, look behind me here, and you got all your battery systems, all your electrical system back here. Here is your live well. Turn that dude on in the morning when you get ready to go. And I want to bring that up because one thing that's different between these guys and NASCAR, they don't have a team taking care of all this equipment. They have to do it themselves. Sometimes it takes them in the middle of the night after the day's fishing to make sure that's all taken care of, because if it doesn't work, they are out of business. But one more thing here. This rig, when I've got the engine kind of tucked in under the transom back there, will run, I'd say 55, maybe 60 miles an hour. But what I would do when I got out on the water is I would begin to trim it. and I'd get it at the right trim. Now this baby will run probably 70 miles an hour. And again, I want to point out that, incidentally, it's about as dangerous as a NASCAR, too. They don't go around in a circle. They have to go through the woods and the rocks, and you know, they've got a lot of obstacles to look at. And again, they've got all their sonar here in front of them. They are really good. They've got their life jacket. There's a kill switch on this boat that would automatically go off if I fell out of the boat. Everything is ready for these guys to do their job, and they do a good job of it. And you know what, guys? I know one of our analysts is Mark May out on the water right now. And at one point, he blocked for John Riggins in the Super Bowl. And I got a feeling he was scareder yesterday going across this lake at 70 miles an hour than he was at that point.
All right. Well, Jerry, thank you so much. Mark May, we have not had a chance to see you. You can imagine with conditions like this, we're doing the best we can with the technology. We will get to Mark May as we go on. Jerry made a great point out there. Look at the rainiest days in classic history. Boy, bad as it is so far, it's not as bad as it was back in 1988 there in North Carolina. Shaw, what do you think about today and the history of the rain in the classic?
Brutal. These guys are really having to put up with some tough conditions, but I can guarantee you one thing, Florida's awesome. They're going to catch some fish.
All right, I have to throw in one thing here. Nowadays, you never see Jerry McInnes going below 70 miles an hour. We know that's true. He loved doing that piece right there, even if it's raining, depending on the visibility. All right, let's take a look at this weather we've got. It's hitting Lake Kissimmee right now. It is terrible. These guys are putting up with it, and in the end, someone will wear the crown of the world champion bass angler. Stay with it, Robbie Floyd. We're with it. We'll be right back.
This Passenger In-Game Update is brought to you by Triton Boats.
Welcome back to Bass Center In-Game. Mark Zona here. Everybody heard George Cochran was catching them this morning, and things have definitely taken a turn out there. He is in brutal weather, brutal wind, brutal waves, and I'm telling you, the biggest thing right now is I'm on the north end of the lake, and the temperature is dropping by the second. I guarantee you it has dropped about 8 degrees up here in the last 20 minutes. And the biggest thing is, our Bass Center set has been devastated by this weather. Rumor has it right now, John Kernan and Byron Velvick have made their way to a spa or something and are warming up. I can tell you this is definitely going to affect this tournament. Right now, in my opinion, the guys that are in the top 5 are going to be in contention to win. Coming back right now will be very hard, especially with this cold front setting in. Now, the one thing is all those guys are out on the lake right now, and we have found some hardcore fishermen right over here. It was pouring up here about probably 10 to 15 minutes ago, and we met a couple fishermen up here. What's your name, partner?
Ryan Young.
Ryan, what are you doing out on a day like this, friend?
I'm just trying to catch some big fish out here, trying to, do some fishing around here around the docks.
You fish around here quite a bit, do you?
Yeah, sometimes I do when I come over here.
Who's your favorite fisherman in the field right now?
Kevin Van Dam.
Kevin Van Dam. He's going to definitely try to make a surge for the top. Now, real quick, let me ask you a question. What are we using here today?
I'm using a Colorado Leaf twin spinnerbait.
Let's show that thing right there. That's your good luck bait right there.
Yeah.
Ryan, we need to get you some rain gear, too. It's starting to get cold and rainy again, and it's nasty, isn't it?
Yeah, it's getting real chilly out here.
Dad, I'm going to bring you in on here, okay? We got to get him set up a little better with some rain gear.
Yeah, we got to do a little something about that. He loves fishing just like I do.
Definitely. What's your name?
Antonio Young.
Gotcha. Now, I'm going to give you a little tip here real quick. Up in that satellite truck up there, we've been able to see the footage of what's going on out on the lake. I'm going to give you a big tip here. You ready? Yeah. Use a topwater frog today. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, because they're crushing them on it.
The horny toad, we use it a lot.
Got that right. Guys, get into some better weather, please. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks, Zona.
Thanks a bunch. Let's take a look at the score panel real quick. Unofficially, Luke Clausen is still leading the event. George Cochran trailing behind him. We have got to see a move, though, from the guys behind him, because I will tell you, if they do not make a move here in the next few hours, things will go drastically bad. It is going to get cold in the next hour or two. Tommy, back to you in a very warmer place.
We're back. Live coverage of the 2006 CITGO Bassmaster Classic continues. And rain or shine, it will happen. Catch the culmination of the Bassmaster Classic this afternoon live from Lake Toho in Kissimmee for the final weigh in the most total weight. 3 days wins $500,000, the biggest winning purse ever by far. CITGO Bassmaster Classic concludes on ESPN later today, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Boy, it has been so far a big bass slugfest. That's what everyone was hoping for. The complexion of today, what with the weather, the 30 to 40, some say even 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts that we're getting here has changed that. But boy, they'll always remember this one as a big bass contest. Let's take a look at the PUROLATOR Big Bass, the biggest bass caught so far in this tournament. That one belongs. Well, we'll get to that one, the biggest of the big bass, but take a look at the two huge ones brought in by Terry Scroggins on day number 2. Man, you talk about a big bass slugfest, and the man on top, Preston Clark, Palatka, Florida, shattered the all-time record of 8 pounds and 9 ounces with an 11:10. Preston Clark in the record books now. And Denny Brower, is that one you think it's ever going to be broken in classic competition?
It could be broken today, Tommy. With the weather we got out there, somebody could get a big bite. Once in a while, it takes a weird set of weather circumstances to get a big bass to trigger. Actually gets him a little stupid, so to speak.
Really? Now, how does that happen?
Well, the wind, the break, they can't see as good. They don't, they're not... if they can see, the bait doesn't fool them as easy. And you get the wind blowing, you get a little disturbance in the weeds, and all of a sudden they see that bait, and they can't tell it from a shiner or a spinner bait or whatever. They see a lot of baits. These fish get a lot of fishing pressure.
So when it's calm, they'll go up, take a good look at it, take a pass on it. When the light is broken up like it is, the surface is broken up, we got a bass that may take something, like you say, stupid.
An extraordinarily large fish is a smarter fish than just average size fish. Harder to catch.
Thank you, Denny. Boy, we're thinking about our guy, Robbie Floyd, out there on the water. I hope you're doing all right, Robbie. We assume you're still transmitting for us. What's it look like now? Is it through?
Guys, I pulled up next to George Cochran just a second ago, and I said, man, now what do you do? And he acted like he was a football punter. So he said he's just trying to find some way to get, out of some cover, have some cover. I don't know where the heck he's going to go. He tried going to the back side of this island here and kind of regroup, put some stuff in some plastic bags, but he's moving on. I'm going to try and chase him because he said he is dedicated to Toho. I said, what are you going to do about the wind? It seems like it's changing. He said, what wind? So he's focused, but he's also full of it right now.
All right, that's a good way to put it. We'll remember that on the weigh-in stage. George Cochran is going to be there, making quite a run today, currently in second place. One of the oldest anglers in the field at age 55, but he's got a ton of experience, 21 classic appearances. Holy cow, George Cochran is definitely a man to be contended with on this day. Got those classic titles back in '87 and in 1996. What's the worst classic weather you ever recall? You were there when that rain record was set, right?
Yeah, I was there in that tournament, and it just was a straight downpour. We didn't have the wind like we do today. You get this wind. This is the biggest factor and biggest story of this tournament. It's not the amount of rain coming down. It's where they can fish because of the wind. So that particular tournament, I think it rained like 3.5, 4 inches. I mean, it was horrible there. But no wind.
All right. You think these guys are going to kind of let this big one go through and kind of stay where they are and see how that affects that? And then if it doesn't work out, they're going to take off for someplace else?
Well, some of them are going to have to just because of where they're located on the lake. But you don't want to do that. You want to utilize your time the best you can. So you can't afford to just sit there. You got to be making those casts. If you don't have that bait in the water, you're certainly not going to win this tournament.
If you're sitting out there on a flat like George Cochran is right now, and you see that this terrible weather has just taken the hide off this vegetation, it's made the water look terrible. What kind of situation are you scanning the shoreline for a protected place?
Yeah, you got to be knowing where those places are going into the day. You got to have a game plan, basically. Where can I go if this hits? And there's islands down there. You get on the opposite side of the island than what the wind's blowing, where you can be protected. So these guys know where to go. They know those sweet spots to get out of the weather.
We take a look at the weather, the radar right there. We're looking a little better at this time. Of course, we looked pretty good about an hour ago, and then we got hit with the big 1-2 punch. So we got to keep our eyes on the weather. We may get a little break here. There was that last little line moving through the way right there. Boy, guys, I tell you what, it's something to contend with. And when we come back, well, we're going to talk about one of the legends of the sport. He has gotten here to the Classic, his 30th Classic, the legend Rick Clunn. And man, oh man, did he put on a show on day number 1, including a 10-pound-plus bass. Rick Clunn, great to see him doing well in Classic action.
Rick Clunn has always been a superstar ever since I was a kid. And I don't see how he can continue at his age and being accomplished as many things as he has accomplished to drive like he does.
All you have to do is lay out his records, and you'll see that he's one of the best of all time.
Rick Clunn is just one of the, the icons of the sport.
Rick doesn't have to fish another day to prove anything to anybody. He fishes because he loves his sport.
All right, we are back. Our classic coverage, live coverage, continues from here in Central Florida, Lakes Kissimmee, Toho, the whole Kissimmee chain. And man, oh man, we have been battered and bruised by some thunderstorms. Big line came through right before the start today, delayed the takeoff by 30 minutes. And then another one just about 20, 30 minutes ago hit Lake Kissimmee, really caused a lot of these guys to have to rethink their game plan. Certainly stopped them from fishing for a while. We haven't seen a lot of fish being caught so far today. Luke Clausen is still our leader. The guys catching fish, well, there's a theme there. George Cochran, the wily veteran, he's caught 9 pounds. Also, Larry Nixon, another veteran, as one of the guys who's caught multiple fish. He's got almost 8 pounds. Man, oh man. But Rick Clunn, the legend, we saw him going out right there. He did not, he's in contention, but we're not seeing him on the leaderboard yet today. But you can't count him out either.
You can't count any of those guys out because these leaders aren't moving. The guys that really had that distance between the rest of the pack are not catching them. The pack's starting to catch up to them a little bit, so it's opening up for a lot of guys to possibly win this event.
All right. We talk about the guys who pursue on the water. Rick Clunn is certainly one of those guys. Of course, fishermen always pursue, rain or shine. Once they let them go, those guys are out there fishing all day long. It's sort of like football. We say it has a lot in football because they're the only 2 sports that really keep going no matter what those weather conditions are like. We got a very special guest, one of our reporters on the water. We're borrowing from the world of football, a man who has done so much in the world of football, Mr. Mark May. One of the Hogs, one of those guys on the left side of the line, took the Redskins to 3 Super Bowls, 82, 83, and 87, including that World Championship in 82 and 87. Spanned his career from 1981 to 1990, played for the Chargers as well, and the Phoenix Cardinals. Mark May, so great to have you here to pursue another one of your passions, and that is fishing. How passionate do you feel after these 2 storms this morning?
Nah, this is hog weather. If you're a fan of the Washington Redskins in the '80 original hog, I love this type of weather. It's windy, it's wet, it's cold, it's rainy. But for the anglers out there, it takes total focus. With any athlete in situations like this, it's the mentally tough athlete that gets over the hump, that can concentrate, that's oblivious to the rain, the wind, the conditions out here. And I think the toughest angler is going to win this tournament. The reason why is because they're mentally focused and dialed in. You see, guys are catching fish all over the lakes today. The reason why the tough guy's going to win this tournament, the guys at the top of the charts, you see George Cochran moving up at the top of the charts, the reason why he's mentally tough. And weather like this, Tommy, you have to forget all the elements and keep that mental focus. As a former player, I didn't care what was going on there. All I wanted to do when I was on the field of play is find a way to win. For these anglers, that's all they're trying to do, is find a way to win that $500,000 first prize.
I have a question for you, Mark. As a bass angler, you've got an 8 or 9 hour day out there. You have to be focused every cast. Now, at a football game, how many plays do you have that you have to be focused on?
Well, offensively, you average about 65 plays a game, so you have to be focused every single play, every snap. There's about a 5 to 6 second burst when you're out there. But for these anglers, as you well know, it's 8 hours, 8.5 hours out there on the boat with the wind conditions going 70 miles an hour, getting knocked around. The other day when I was on the boat with Mark Menendez in the practice round, we were going 70 miles an hour. I thought I was back playing football again. When I got off the boat that day, my knees were sore, my back was sore, my neck was sore. I thought I was 10 years ago playing for the Washington Redskins.
All right, Mark May. Well, you've been there before, and you probably recognize the look in the eyes of someone who has found a way to win. Get out there and find that person for us. Tell us who's going to win this classic. Great work out there, Mark May. We are so happy to have him here. Mark May with such a great list of accomplishments in the world of football. He's been to the top. Another man who's been to the top, of course, is Rick Clunn. Won his 2nd classic here on Lake Toho back in 1977. There's another record that no one has come close to yet. Rick Clunn winning 2 classics in a row. Someone's still looking to be the 2nd person to win 2 classics in a row, but 30 appearances for Rick Clunn. There are those 4 classic titles. Man, what a career, Denny.
Well, 30 classics in a row, that's just a figure that maybe nobody will reach. Kevin may get there someday, but to do it, I mean, that's unbelievable. But Rick's just a tremendous angler.
Boy, another impressive statistic there. 16 top 10 finishes in the Classic. This is what Rick Clunn had to say about winning that Classic way back in 1977 here at Toho.
Winning the Classic 4-time really represents to me one of my biggest goals, and that was to exceed at a high level over many years. It's my second Bassmaster Classic win in 1977. Was on this lake, but it was in November. My intention was to go south through the lock, leave Toho, and go into Lake Kissimmee. It was so foggy, I circled and circled, and finally I knew I was wasting time. It's the first grass line I come to, I'm going to stop and start fishing, let the fog lift. And that's where I ended up winning the Classic. My third or fourth cast, I caught a 7-pounder. None of us really caught fish. I actually won, not because I fished best, because I fished the least worst of anybody. It's probably the only tournament I will admit to in my career that I lucked out. So maybe it'll get foggy this tournament.
Rick Clunn right there. You take a look at so many pictures of him you'll see on the expo floor there. And Rick Clunn, we were both inundated with background information on all these anglers, and they're asked to list their influences, their heroes in the sport. And it's not unexpected, Denny Brower, that Rick Clunn is listed more than anyone else there.
No, he's been around the sport for a long time, but the bottom line is he's a class act. Everybody respects him. He works so hard at this. The reason he's been so successful for this long a period of time is he continues to learn. When new techniques evolve, he wants to learn those techniques so that he can become better. Jerry touched on it yesterday. He knew this could be a sight fishing tournament, so he intentionally tried to become a better sight fisherman. That's Rick Clunn. He wants to be good at everything.
30-plus classics for Rick Clunn. The club of folks who have 20-plus classics in their pocket is a pretty impressive one as well. Let's take a look at that right now. It includes another legend, Larry Nixon. Gary Klein has been here so many times, gotten so close to victory, and George Cochran, the man in second place right now. One of those guys in the 20 Classics Club is with our own Jerry McInnes on the expo floor right now. Who we got, Jerry?
Well, I tell you what, I was listening to Mark May a minute ago talk about tough competitors, and you guys have been talking about veterans and legends and Rick Clunn, and who should be out here but Gary Klein? He fits every one of those categories, and right off the bat, your opinion of Rick Clunn.
Well, I tell you, Rick is an awesome angler, and I grew up being a real close friend with Ricky. And I mean, not only is he a good person, he's a great angler, but he just studies. He's constantly pushing, trying to, basically become a better angler. And he's striving for perfection, and I really, really appreciate that.
Well, now, was that comment about Rick Clunn, or was it about Gary Klein?
Well, I'm still learning, too. Yeah. I mean, obviously, my performance here showed that I have a lot to learn, and that's a great thing about this sport. Nobody really has it figured out, truly.
Well, I talked a little bit earlier, Gary, about George Cochran, and I said he could be a real threat, along with Larry Nixon and actually several guys, because they know how to win. And when I say that, that sounds like such a shallow statement. What does that mean? But it is a fact, isn't it? Guys know how to win.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, you take a look at George Cochran. The weather, the way it's laying out today, if I was going into this event with a 5 or 6 pound deficit and I had to make it up, I'd love to have the weather conditions the way we do. It's going to hold the leaders up a little bit, and it's going to allow the rest of the field, somebody puts together a really, a couple key bites, they may be able to come back and win this. George is just so calm, so cool. He's been there before. He's won the Classic twice. Great angler, and he fishes at a really slow. He fishes at George Cochran's pace.
Yeah, that's right.
And if he gets in an area and puts something together, it won't take him 30 minutes to win this Classic.
Gary, I hate to bring this one up. You've been here 24 times, which is an incredible 24 times in the Classic. But you haven't taken home the trophy. I'd been so close.
Well, I've had my opportunities, and I know it will happen. Most important thing is you have to be in the game to win. And
you've surely got 20, 30 more years left, haven't you?
Well, I know I have quite a few more.
And what year did you start?
Actually, in 1979.
At what age?
I was 20.
He was 20 years old, have never really had another career or occupation in any way.
I graduated from high school and become a competitive angler.
I tell you what, Tommy and Denny, I don't need to be telling this to Denny here, but everybody knows that I am sitting here with a class. He called Rick Clunn a class act. Gary Klein is a class act as well.
Boy, that's the absolute truth right there. There's a trophy that they all want so bad to complete a career. But when you really look at it, and a guy like Gary Klein, really has nothing to prove. Everyone's in awe of him and his skills. Still, it's got to weigh on his mind. I know it weighed on yours before you won your first Classic. It's a monkey on your back.
It really is, and that's the one question he always gets asked by the media. Is this going to be the year you win the Classic? And you hate to get asked that question. And yeah, it is a monkey on your back. And when I finally won, it was the happiest day of my career. No, he doesn't have to do it to validate his career, but he thinks he does. We don't think he does, but he does. And until he does, he's not going to be happy with his career.
All right. Let's take a look at some fishing. Now, right now, again, our stories today include 2 Florida anglers trying to be the first angler ever to win in their home state. Terry Scroggins is one of those men. What a tremendous comeback he made on day number 2. Here's action for today. 3 of his 4 last tournaments, he's either finished first or second. You talk about a guy on a roll, Terry Scroggins. He needs to get that roll going today. He made it all the way back. So apparently the storm has passed where Terry Scroggins is. He can get back to work. What's he going to get after, Denny?
Well, what he's going to do is he's going to target on lily pads. That's how he caught him yesterday. That's where the big bites came from. And he was throwing a stick worm, just throwing it out there by them pads and letting it drift down. And we touched on it earlier. That's a hard bait to fish in the wind. This storm passes through, calms down a little bit. Terry's going to start catching fish.
All right, another one of our reporters out there braving the elements has been with Terry Scroggins. Who wouldn't be on a day like today? Exactly what is he doing right now, Kim Bain?
Hey, Terry. Oh, I got Terry on the brain. Hi, Tommy. Yeah, I got Terry behind me, and right now he's fishing a spinnerbait. He said to me in practice that if it got real windy like it is today, he would be fishing a spinnerbait covering water. He's fishing around some lily pads, as Denny said. Now, one thing that was interesting of what Terry said in practice, he said it would be a multiple pattern tournament. You couldn't sight fish all 3 days. You couldn't flip all 3 days. You really had to mix it up, and the fish were going to move into different areas and different covers during the event, and that's certainly what we've seen. He's fishing the way he wants to. He's certainly moving around. What we saw yesterday, he fished the entire perimeter of Kissimmee. He's in Kissimmee right now, and yeah, he's doing great. He's doing great in the weather, and I'm trying to fight it too. I'm just about getting blown off the boat, so he's dealing with some tough conditions. Back to you, Tommy.
Well, Kim, thank you so much. In all these places, she says he's moving around a lot, but is he hitting the same sort of spot, the same depth, the same vegetation, Denny?
I think this is the spot that he did catch him in yesterday, but unfortunately, it's still windy there. He can't fish the same bait, so this is messing with his mind.
All right, let's take a look at the full leaderboard on this final day of the CITGO Bassmaster Classic, the World Championship of Fishing. Well, you got to get the job done today. And now Luke Clausen is back on the board. He's moved all the way up to 49 pounds. That's a tremendous lead right there.
Oh, that's huge. He's going to be tough to catch. He gets his limit. These guys are going to have their work cut out for him.
Davey Height, Scott Rook all trying to get in there. Kevin Van Dam, our defending Classic champion, staying in 18th place for the time being. Again, you never count him out until he crosses the stage. We have so much more. Stay with us. We got the beautiful palm trees, but they are waving in the breeze today. The breeze is considerable on this final day of the 2006 CITGO Bassmaster Classic. Our live coverage continues from here in Central Florida. Man, oh man, what a day it has been. It's moving day. The day you've got to really make your move if you want to win this thing. We got a lot of action going on. Edwin Evers is one of our anglers out there on the water, one of the anglers in contention after 2 days of fishing. A very tough guy. Had a big win on the tour earlier this year on Lake Norman in North Carolina. Let's take a look at some fishing today from Edwin Evers on the water. He's broken the ice. He's gotten himself 1 catch. Looks like he's hung a pretty good one there, Denny.
Oh, he's loaded up on what looks like a great fish. This guy's a tremendous angler, Tommy. This is the next superstar of the sport, in my opinion. Not as big as I thought. It'll fool you once in a while.
There was a little bit of a whippy rod, I guess. It made it look like it bent so much there. But Edwin Evers, you say he's one of the coming superstars in this sport. The man from Mansville, Oklahoma, only 31 years of age, and already he's been to 6 classics. That tells you a lot about how this guy knows how to get where he's going.
He's got a tremendous work ethic. He works really hard at this sport, and he's a cool hand, Luke. I mean, you need to call this guy butter because he's smooth. He fishes every technique out there. He never gets rattled. He's good with the public. He just does everything right, and because of that, I predict that he's going to be a huge superstar before he's finished.
Won himself an event in each of the last 3 seasons, and that is not an easy thing to do, right?
Oh, no. The consistency there, you know, to win is hard enough, but to win multiple years in a row, that says all you need to know right there. By the time his career's done, he he's going to have accomplished a lot. He's going to be one of the best anglers of all time. I may be wrong, but if he keeps up that work ethic, he's going to go to the top.
What would you say his specialty is?
He's a power fisherman. He loves to throw shallow crankbaits. That's what he does best, but he realizes he can't do that all the time. So he will flip. He will do anything it takes to catch fish. When we were at the Norman Lake tournament, he was catching them off boat docks on a little bitty jig. That told me all I needed to know about him.
He is kind of the human highlight film as well. We've seen footage of him through the years, always digging into the grass, always bent himself around boat docks trying to retrieve a fish. All right, Luke Clausen still hanging on to that lead. Boy, he's got a firm grasp on it right now, almost a 9-pound lead. We're going to take you now to Bass Center in-game.
This Bass Center in-game update is brought to you by Mercury Marine.
Welcome back to Lakefront Park, live here at the north end of Lake Toho, Kissimmee, Florida. This is our Bass Center in-game update. The temperature, in case you're checking out the weather, has dropped almost 10 degrees since the launch this morning at 7 o'clock. We are back from the spa.
Yeah, back from the spa. Unlike Zona, who likes to go out in the rough stuff, he reminds me of cattle. He goes out and just stays in the pasture, and whether it's freezing cold or rain or lightning, Zona's our cow, the Bass Center cow.
Well, and the anglers out there, the 25 anglers competing for the championship, they don't come in off the water because of the weather. They're out there fishing, and we've got some fish catches to show you from this morning as we take a look here at George Cochran, who's, made a big charge, Byron. He's already got, 3 fish, and he's second right now.
What a quick move for this guy, because so many people are not catching any fish just yet. So what we're getting is guys that are making moves with just 3 fish here, like the one we're seeing right here. This is a big move for him, and that's a quality fish. Look
6.5 pounds.
Oh! That fish looks bigger than 6.5. I was about ready to say it's closer to 8. They always look bigger in the water. There we go.
True.
Nice fish from George. Again, he's throwing a soft plastic bait like a worm, or that actually looks like a sinking minnow. Oh, and we got Scroggins.
Yeah, Terry Scroggins, he's currently unofficially in the 4th position. He's landed 1 fish today, kind of a small one.
Heavily still our pick to win this thing because of adjustments. A small fish so far, but this classic weigh-in should be real exciting because this guy has the potential to blow the doors off this thing in the last hour because he's such a versatile fisherman.
And I miscounted. Scroggins is actually, now we see an update right there on the leaderboard. Has jumped all the way up into the 2nd spot. Luke Clausen, Byron, we didn't see any video of him, but he came in here as the leader. He's led ever since the beginning. He didn't start catching on the fish until just a few minutes ago.
Oh, and you know what? Some of these guys right now are making big moves right now because the weather is changing, and guys are going to have a lot of different things happening. This is the exciting part now because it is getting crunch time for the Bassmaster Classic for guys that want to be the champion and take home $500,000. That's incredible.
Now, of course, the front has blown through, a cold front. The temperature's dropped almost 10 degrees. How does that affect things?
Well, right now, with it being like that, the weather is going to be a lot tougher on these guys. And these guys are having to abandon ship. They have to pick up that trolling motor because they got 3- and 4-foot waves coming like we've been seeing in a lot of the clips. These guys have to pick it up and make a run to all new water and fresh water. If I know Zona, he's probably out there in those 3- or 4-foot waves right now in a canoe, ready to do another remote because I know how that's going to play. But those of us that have it down, we're here right now watching the most exciting event. I'm just excited to get to the weigh-in and watch it all happen.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget the weigh-in coverage starts at 5:30 Eastern live on ESPN. That's going to do it for this Bass Center in-game update from Lakefront Park. For Byron Velvick, I'm John Curtin. Now let's throw it back to Tommy Sanders and more of our continuing live coverage of the Classic.
All right, take a look at the storylines from this final day of the CITGO Bassmaster Classic. Weather has been one of the super big players. It delayed the launch, and another big system came through about 30 minutes ago and really is rocking things out there on the water. But these guys are pursuing. Luke Clausen, 29 pounds, 6 ounces on day 1. Yesterday, not so good, but he is hanging in there today. An 8-pound lead at this moment. George Cochran, the guy who's made the surprise move today, or is that a surprise?
It's not a surprise with George catching him, obviously. It's a surprise that some of these other guys have not caught any fish yet. Ultimately, I think it's going to boil down to which one of those top guys get that one big bite to really put them over the hump.
All right, we've got so much on the way here. Another hour of live coverage coming up, followed by Bass Center. We're on the way to the weigh-in coming up today, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's coming up on ESPN today. You definitely don't want to miss that. A lot of pageantry, of course, all the tradition and all the excitement of crowning the world champion bass angler today on ESPN, 5:30 p.m.